Regular meeting of the Stuart City Commission for the 28th of April, 2025. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Rich.
Here.
Vice Mayor Collins.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Giobbe. Here. Commissioner Reed.
Here. And this evening, the invocation will be provided by Pastor Darrell Orman of the First Baptist Church. And will you then please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Before I pray, I'd like to invite everyone. Thursday's the National Day of Prayer, and we've been organizing for 30 years a meeting at the gazebo next to the courthouse at noon. I'd like to invite everyone to come and pray with us, interdenominational. In fact, our wonderful mayor's going to be leading us out in prayer, and we're going to have a great time together. And so I want to encourage you to come. Let's pray together. Father, we just want to...
They invited me, I accepted it.
Father, we just want to tell you we love you and thank you and praise you for your mighty Son, the Lord Jesus, and ask you, please, dear God, to pour your Spirit out upon this commission. We pray that the meeting tonight, that the deliberations would be led by your Spirit. And Father, please bless our city, the city of Stuart. Continue to put a hedge of protection around it and pour your Spirit out upon it. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Comments by city commissioners. Commissioner Reed, do you have a comment this evening?
Sorry. I know Mike and I have spoke about this, and I don't know if I should address the public on it, Mike, or you can bring them up to speed on the Costco traffic light, how the city basically has no say.
I don't have any comments, so you're welcome to bring them up.
Okay, so I know on social media, something to do with the Costco traffic signalized light, there was an easement access that the applicant may or may not have received signatures for, and there was a gentleman that was upset that lives across the street because he didn't get his landscape upgrades, and apparently the city of Stuart has no say-so in it, even though it's a city of Stuart development project. The applicant applied for a signalized light with DOT, and DOT, from my conversations with them, would convey the signalized light to Martin County to maintain it, and it's up to Martin County if they choose to accept it or not. So how does that work when we approve projects for development? It calls out for a site plan with a signalized light, and if an easement wasn't signed to maintain it, whether that's for DOT or Martin County, how does it play out, I guess? Because I know it's not the first time it's probably happened.
First of all, if there is somebody that believes that there is an ordinance that is not being followed or that violates the law, they can file a circuit court action and challenge it in circuit court, or they could file an appeal and challenge it in front of the city commission, or they could come here and make a formal complaint or seek a code enforcement of it. A lot of times what we find is that the accuracy of the information gets lost in translation. I don't know if there was an easement agreement ever to be discussed with this guy or not. The state law prohibits the city from conditionalizing the approval of any project on a state agency permit or license. What was happening historically is a municipality or a county would say to the applicant, well, we're not going to hear your project until you go get the traffic light license and you go get the stormwater approvals and all the stuff, and then they'd go spend $30,000 on all the stuff, and then the municipality would deny the application anyway. And so it was doing it in reverse. The city approves the application or the ordinance conditioned on compliance with all state regulatory agencies. So in this instance, the traffic light being warranted by the FDOT was presented during the application. They said they would be seeking the traffic light, and FDOT granted the traffic light. As it relates to the easement, my understanding of it was that the applicant, or the developer approached the person across the street, offered to buy the 4 or 6 foot easement from them for $125,000. They said, yes, the deal was agreed upon, but then the developer said, there's a challenge pending. I don't want to purchase the easement if it doesn't get approved, so I'll put the money in a trust account that would be contingent upon the outcome of the challenge. And the person with the land across the street said, no, I want the money now, or I'm not going to do it. And as a result, the developer went back to FDOT and modified the application for the light, changed the location of where this easement was necessary, and installed the electronic equipment that was going to be in the easement in another location. As a result, there is no easement that would be necessary for the equipment because it's not there. But again, I didn't investigate it or do anything, because that's between them and FDOT. And as a result, from the city's perspective, everything is in compliance. FDOT has never told us anything wasn't done properly. When we first got notified on this issue, the original thing was that
It's a tree.
it was a tree, and that was true, and they replanted it, but FDOT required it. And then the next one was that he owed the money, and then we determined that it wasn't owed. And then the next one was that the traffic light was on his property, and it turned out that it was like the arm itself had been 45-degree angle, so at the very end of the arm, it was a foot over in the air over the property
Yeah,
line.
they're gonna rotate
And they fixed it, and they repaired that. I haven't heard anything about the lack of an easement or the failure to have an easement. I'm under the impression that FDOT has all the easements that they need, and that the light has been installed, and that the Costco opened, and that the traffic light is, I don't know if it's even functioning or not, but it will be.
It's
Right.
functioning.
So
I
it's
guess
up and
I'll
running.
follow up
Right.
with DOT then.
But I also didn't get a complaint from the person about the easement. It's, as you mentioned, there's stuff posting on social media, but the actual property owner never called the city and never made a claim or never said anything about it, so we didn't take action on his behalf.
So if DOT said there was supposed to be an easement, would the city take action then, or no?
DOT wouldn't do the light.
Right.
Because, I mean, I had conversations with DOT, and they said that there's no easement, and they said that there was supposed to be one, but...
There could have, originally,
Gotcha.
there was supposed to be one.
Okay.
But then, when he wouldn't wait for the payment, they found another location for the equipment. So there's no need for an easement, because there's no easement necessary to put equipment there. The only reason for the easement was to put the equipment there. So if you tell the FDOT, where's the easement, or what was the original site plan, they'd say, yeah, it shows an easement of 4 feet here on this property. But then, if you said, okay, but 6 months later, how did the, or can you pull your records and show us how the light got installed? Because the equipment would have to be in that location and for the light to work. So if the equipment's not there and the light's still working, it's in another location. And so
Alright.
they did it
Yeah, I'll follow
somewhere
up
else.
with DOT
Right.
then this week.
But
I'll
the other
follow-
side to it is that
Yeah.
it's really, I mean, unless you have a complaint about it, but has the owner of
I-
the property called you and said something to you?
Yeah, I've had conversations with him and DOT about it, and specifically...
So is he claiming that that they're on his property?
He said he didn't sign an easement agreement.
I know, but an easement agreement would mean that they were going on his
Correct,
property.
They have permission to be on his property.
Right, but are they on his property?
Well, eventually they're going to have to come onto his property and maintain it, wouldn't they?
No.
No, never?
When they adjusted the light, they didn't go on his property.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to call whoever you want, but I don't know what, and I'm happy to do something too if the city wanted us to take action, but I don't know what we would take action for.
Yeah,
There's not an issue.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Commissioner Giobi.
I have no comments.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you.
Well, my first thing was going to be Costco, that it's opened. I did try to see if that turn-in movement worked, and I observed the traffic along there, but that just was for one time on an occasion. It was early, I think either on Thursday or Friday, late on Thursday and early on Friday. I haven't been there for the rest of the weekend. But it's here, and we'll just see how things go and see what the season brings in terms of, you know, the parking and all the drainage and everything like that. But it's here. Yesterday, I participated in a Take Back Our Community event at the Martin Luther King Jr. Park at the corner of Park Avenue and Central Avenue. And it was a great event that was spearheaded by Althea Wiley, and it had people in the community just come out and have Sunday dinner and just exchange ideas and meet with each other and just generate some positive energy. And I think that that group is trying to work with the community in general as well as the youth to, you know, just get people to really become more involved and to become more understanding of each other. And I just wanted to commend everybody, all the churches and everybody who donated and participated in that event, and especially Ms. Wiley and the groups that spearheaded the event and worked together on that. With regard to other events, May is coming up, and on May 1st at the it's Historic Preservation Month for May. The county is going to be highlighting a lot of things during that month to celebrate their 100th year, 2025. And the day will start off with an event at the Stewart Feed Store in the back. And there will be other events all during the month of May. There's a large flyer that people can obtain from the city's front desk or from the Stewart Feed Store, or just going online, they can find out all the events for Historic Preservation Month. I'm going to do, I think, is my third or fourth year of celebrating Emancipation Day in the state of Florida. Most people think of Juneteenth as the last day when people heard that there was an abolishment of being enslaved. And people think of that as being out on the West Coast in Texas. But now we have Florida, and we need to learn more about Florida history and what happened in Florida. And we'll be celebrating with education and talking about the history of education in our community. And we'll be at St. Paul AME Church at 5:30 p.m. on the Tuesday, the 20th, celebrating Florida Emancipation Day as a part of the Florida legislative actions and the actions that they do in Tallahassee at the Knott House and Museum up there in Tallahassee. And we'll be following their theme, and we'll be working on that on May the 20th. A lot of people have sent letters about 10th Street, and I know that probably people are going to come and speak today. And this is 10th Street to the east of Palm Beach Road, mostly, where there are a lot of kids riding their bikes to school or walking to school, or parents walking their kids to school. That's a big issue. And just speed in the area and traffic calming techniques. So I think that that's something that they've brought up, and I think we need to discuss this as a commission if we're going to be doing a study of the area, or how we're going to get the residents in the area to get their concerns to us, and how we're going to work with that. So I think that I'm hoping that if there are people here tonight, or if they continue to come out or continue to write to us, that we'll find a way to either have them speak to us directly in some type of a charrette thing, or if we have staff work with them. But we'll hear how we need to, I would like to hear how people would want to address this. I know that we just had a meeting before this for the CRA, and it was pointed out that east of Palm Beach Road is not in the CRA, so any type of funding or any type of special programs to work with traffic calming and other things in that area would be something that would need to be worked out. And of course, we have the budget guy here tonight who's going to be talking about another subject. Oh, I won't hurt you. And so, so that's something that needs to be looked into. But I know that we've listened to, we've heard the concerns from reading the emails, and I think that a few people did come up and personally talk to us at the last meeting. One of the things that I have on my list, and this was also brought up in the CRA meeting, but it's basically to look into East Stewart Community Plan. We've had a lot of things at the very end of the discussions on the very final points for the zoning in progress. And a lot of the people in East Stewart came out and said, yet again, they felt like they've been ignored and that they thought that they needed to know more about a more master planning for the area, even though they've had a plan that was from 2004, and they wanted to just have some more understanding of different group meetings to just explain things to them. And so that is something that has come up. And of course, people have been asking about the MLK. We're halfway into 25, and I know that we have a 25-26 schedule for that, and people want to know when that is coming up. So if we need to send out a little newsletter or do something to put some knockers on people's doors or whatever to let people know what's happening, or I can set up a town hall and have people come out and have some discussion. I can talk to Pinal and Jody and see if we can find a way to get together some people and see how we can work that. But that has been brought up as something that needs to be looked at. This came up in the last meeting, but I put it on my list to bring it up as something that we need to work on and continue with. And this was with the CRA about dealing with heirs who have issues with trying to clear title for their property. And even though we have these programs, sometimes people don't know enough about them because we don't spend time from staff and the way the city functions to get people information about these different programs. And so I think that that's important to do this in this meeting. We did have a CRA meeting before that, but this program especially is designed to assist and to help persons in East Stewart to help clear their property titles and stuff. And so my thing here is to talk to staff or city manager to see if we can somehow find a way to make sure that staff is doing outreach and getting out there to talk to people. And again, I'll discuss this with city manager and see if I need to have a town hall or anybody else need to have a town hall, we can do that, and we can try to set something up so that we can have people with information there to let people know what's going on.
And it's just 31 properties, and we sent direct mail to everyone.
To those, yeah.
And I just want to say, that a lot of times, the person in residence might not want to
be involved.
doesn't want to clear title on the property because it could turn out that the property becomes their cousin's home, or they have to split it with their 3 siblings, and they have to start paying rent where they haven't been paying rent before, and things like that, so they're hesitant to move forward.
Yeah, I hear you. All right.
And Pastor James indicate he's reaching out to them.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to make sure that we know that we're trying our best and that staff is trying their best to get information out to people. And that's it. I really would want to emphasize that our board members as well as the public participate in our Historic Preservation Month events. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Mr. Vice Mayor.
So I have two points. One was along the same lines with the neighborhood wanting some resolution with traffic calming. I think we do need to discuss this and figure out what the path's going to be. But I do have concerns because it seems like as emails come in, different neighbors, whatever street they live on, they also want traffic calming on their street. I want it on mine too, on Flamingo. So we need to figure out where the most need is, and how to do this in a cost-effective way since it's not in a CRA. Because really, it's not just 10th to Ocean and Palm Beach Road on that side, it's also the other side in East Stewart, right? So you could really go from A1A to Monterey,
Home City Road.
Ocean to 10th, and even, potentially further down, but really it seems like, 10th to Ocean, A1A to Monterey is where there's the most need, just off, my perception. But how to do that in a cost-effective way. Secondarily is parks. So with the half-cent sales tax, I talked to Mike about this week, but I'd like for us to have some discussion and come up with a plan. I don't know exactly what you call it, a parks master plan. I see in the city, it's probably going to be more about developing and making our parks and playgrounds nicer. And also, if there is opportunity for buying land, which is the original purpose of it, that would be great too. But, what I wanted to see with the last commission, I brought it up, was, Haney Creek having that 2 acres be a trailhead there with parking and, light infrastructure where needed, bridges, but basically natural trails through there, kind of a thing. But I'd like for us to discuss, are we going to bond with the assumption of those taxes coming in over that time frame, like what the county's going to do? Are we going to incrementally use it as it comes in? And if so, what would the priority list be? I think we should have some kind of discussion on what this board thinks is the way to spend that money in the direction we should be going. So those are my 2 thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Well, I guess I'm going to add one item because with regard to the discussion about traffic safety, I had the great pleasure of addressing 2 fifth-grade classes last week. They had really good questions, and in response to one of them, I indicated that we were looking at implementing some safety measures on the road right in front of their school, and a great shout of joy went up. So they're all well aware of the peril that exists for them. So we're certainly doing the right thing there. Last week I went to a ribbon cutting at Cleveland Clinic, has a new facility just north of the bridge. It's right by LA Fitness. It was an empty building. And they have 3 new primary care physicians. They happen to be, all of them are women. A year ago, the wait to get a doctor as a new patient was over 200 days. The wait now, Cleveland Clinic, and they are accepting new patients up there, is down to 22 days. So I think they deserve credit for recognizing that problem and taking the steps to remedy it. It's a very nice facility up there. And then finally, I just want to point out, you can all see this, that the Bright Line is now running 6 passenger cars. People don't think that's a very big deal, but they're increasing their capacity, they're responding to the need, they are increasing it by 20%. And this weekend, in the New York Times, there was a very laudatory article about the Bright Line, and it said, in Florida, Bright Line has proved that it can operate reliable, well-designed passenger trains that people want to ride. Can the public sector do the same? So to all those doomsayers who were forecasting the demise of the Bright Line, in fact, the opposite is true. And I know the majority of this community still hopes that we can become a part of this passenger rail service by having a train station right downtown. That concludes my comments. Mr. City Manager.
I have a few items. First, there's a BDB appointment and criteria that has been kind of bouncing around, and I've been dealing with Commissioner Giobbe on it, but in the latest round, and it's kind of one of these things where the goal line keeps moving, but I think we've finally stopped it from moving. But the BDB has changed its policy from having the elected officials sit on the board for fear of violation of some sunshine potentials, and as a result, they're having the elected official that's appointed by the commission sit as is it a liaison? Is that what they're calling the position?
Right, non-voting.
A
It's a non-voting.
non-voting liaison member. And then they're asking that the city commission appoint a resident of the city to serve as the voting member to the BDB. Commissioner Giobbe had reached out originally under the original bylaw direction to someone to have him serve under the BDB, but we were notified that you have to have had a business tax in the city of Stewart for 6 months prior to serving, and this person's business tax was only a week old. He'd been in the community longer, but the distinction was the business tax was different. So as a result, since that particular appointee isn't able to serve, what I'd like to do is bring it back at the next meeting and have the city commission appoint a representative from the city. But the problem is, I don't have any names of anybody or anybody, because we haven't, it's not been advertised, and normally when we had the 2 appointments for the CRA and the 2 at-large appointments for the LPA, people had names of people that they wanted us to reach out to. So what I thought I would do, and it can, since the next agenda is due tomorrow, I can't do it for the May 12th meeting, but I could do it for the second meeting in May, and I could ask all of the commissioners if by the end of the week, if you would email me the names of anybody that you think might be interested in serving, I will then have myself or someone from the city will send them the form application that needs to be filled out that has the criteria in it that they be a resident of the city of Stewart.
How often does it meet?
4 times a year, I believe, is what it is. Is it once a quarter or once a month?
It's once a month.
Okay, once a month. So 12 meetings.
I would not want to see staff doing this, but I don't think it,
Staff's not going to do it.
okay, you're
No, it
saying
has to
from
be
the
an
city.
appointed.
Not
So
staff.
if you send me 3 names of people you want me to send the application
forgive me, I
to,
misunderstood.
I'll send the application to the 3 names.
I thought we were going to be spending money
No.
sending
No.
them to a BDP.
And then
Somebody from staff.
what we'll do is, on the 28th, anybody that returns the application, I will attach those applications to the 28th agenda item, and the commission as a whole will pick one to serve as our representative. Right now, I don't have any submittals. I had one, and unfortunately, the rules changed, and he got disqualified. Or any
Is
other...
that something that Commissioner Giobbe would offer?
No, because it's not, Commissioner Giobbe is our appointee. This appointment is a city's designation. If the city commission wants to interpret that as, you guys want to vote at the next agenda and say whoever is appointed to the BDB will then appoint a representative,
I think so.
that, well, again, we can do it on the 28th, but
Is more appropriate to me, because she's there, and then that person, that is our representative.
Right.
BDB.
right.
So,
Right. Currently, can I clarify, currently on the Business Development Board, I'm the only commissioner, mayor of an entity that's still voting. The county already has a person designated on the board, and so does the mayor of Indiantown. So I'm the only person that's still voting. I have a voting right. The others, and part of the reason is that then we can then talk to our appointee as to the things you might like to happen within the Business Development Board. So right now, I'm kind of under the sunshine laws. I can't really talk to the other members, but I could talk to my appointee.
So I don't care if I hear a motion right now that Commissioner Giobbe is the person to appoint that, and
Yeah.
you get a vote on it, I'm fine with that, and we won't bring it back.
Right. Or I could also just stay as the voting member. It's, all I'm saying is that seems to be the way it's evolving. The commissioner from the Martin County and from Indiantown do not have a vote.
Is the BDB requesting that we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a step that they've taken.
Well, it happened 2 years ago. Harold Jenkin was the county appointee to the BDB, and the airline, the airport manufacturer that was taking space here was having a meeting with Commissioner Jenkins and some other members of the BDB board, and Commissioner Jenkins was advised that that would violate sunshine because he's on the BDB board with them, and as a result, he couldn't go to the meeting, which is when he brought it back to the county commission and said he didn't want to do it that way, he wanted to resign from it so that he could communicate, and then the BDB's policy was changed to say that Indiantown would appoint a liaison non-voting member and a resident voting member, same with Martin County, same with the city of Stewart. The city of Stewart has appointed Commissioner Giobbe, but the city of Stewart hasn't appointed the voting member now. So if you want the city not to do the appointment, and you guys want to have whoever the designee is to unilaterally appoint, and you guys ratify the person, I have no problem with that either. That's what we were originally doing when the rules got clarified.
And he was
So-
well qualified,
Right, and-
unfortunately, he didn't meet
Right, it's
the
just a,
tax permit.
right, and he would be next year essentially anyway, but again,
What do you think? Do you want to stay that person and bump the system, or do you want us to
it-
come up with another person?
I don't think it matters either way. I don't mind. It just limits what I can say to the other members. That's really what they based it on, is that I now am limited because I'm under sunshine. Once we have an appointee and I'm a non-voting member, then I don't have those limitations. It really doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I don't know if they've made it mandatory. I think it's really up to us. I could find out. I'm not sure.
well, their bylaws have been,
Their bylaws have
updated.
come up with
Right.
with this.
Would you rather be responsible for coming up with a liaison, or would you rather the board do it as a whole?
Well, I would like other people's input. I did come up with someone who's actually very good, but unfortunately, he didn't meet the final requirement, which was the 6 months having the tax permit for his business. He does have a business. I guess he really
Right.
just filled in for the tax.
Well, he had just come, and he had just come back here, and he originally was going to be appointed for something, or he had to be here 6 months. Now, the 6 months had run, and he had done it, but the day he moved here is different from the day he got the business tax receipt.
Well, if Commissioner Giobbe is open to having the board
Yeah,
collectively
if
work on
people
that,
have,
then
if
do you-
anyone on the
would you
commission
want a
has
motion along
names that
those
they want
lines,
to
or-
put.
So what I'm asking is just, if the board members give me, between now and Friday, the names of anybody you believe we should send an application to, and then we'll send
People
an
may
application.
hear this and
And
send.
sure,
We've
anybody
had
that's
good luck
interested.
with people sending in
Right.
applications. So
And
let's
then,
see who's out there.
we will then put any applications we receive, whether it's 1 or 20, on the agenda, and from that, the commission
Choice will
can
be made.
select it. And obviously, it's not going to be May 12th, because the May 12th agenda closes tomorrow, so it'll be
That's okay.
the May, second meeting in May, whatever the fourth Monday in May is.
That's fine.
Okay, next item is the Housing Authority. The Stewart Housing Authority, we normally ratify the Housing Authority member, but our most recent Housing Authority member resigned to serve on the East Stewart Board, which created a vacancy for the Stewart Housing Authority, and we need to appoint someone. And on top of that, when I looked on their website, it looks to me like there's 2 vacancies on the Stewart Housing Authority. And so I didn't know if the commission wanted to suggest names to me, or if you wanted staff to go out and elicit the names and the people through the Stewart Housing Authority, or if you want to authorize me to contact the Stewart Housing Authority and move forward on it, put that on an agenda as well. I'm not sure if they would even reach out to us if it wasn't for me bringing it up or not. I don't know if you've heard from them or not.
I don't like to be critical. Has the Stewart Housing Authority been as effective as they possibly could have been in recent experience?
I don't want to put Mary on the hot seat for that, but the answer is no. so the Stewart Housing Authority is no longer operated by a Stewart director. There was an issue with the Stewart director, and the director was removed, and they temporarily placed it in the hands of the Fort Pierce Housing Authority about 10 years ago, and that temporary has turned into a permanent. But I can tell you that there's circumstances where the Stewart Housing Authority does meet, I think quarterly, and I know Pearlie's here, but the question is, what do they do? And unfortunately, there's such a shortage of housing that if you call the Stewart Housing Authority to ask about getting housing, they tell you that the application or the waiting list is closed since 2017 because there's no housing available. But I also know that there's lots of housing in Martin and St. Lucie counties, and I know that if people have tried to call them to say, what do I need to do to get my housing listed on their housing list, and there is nobody at the Housing Authority that knows or that gives any information as to how to do it. Again, I don't know what criteria the board's looking for in a representative for the Stewart Housing Authority. I don't know if the board wants to find somebody that lives in Stewart, in the affordable housing, in the Stewart housing, or simply is familiar with it, or has landlord-tenant experience, or anything. We really, since as long as I can remember, have just ratified the appointees, and we could ask Ms. Clark, who's actually here, to ask her to.
To me, your answer indicates there's an opportunity there.
Certainly.
And if we were thoughtful, and we have the opportunity to appoint 2 people, correct?
I don't.
If we got 2 good people, perhaps things could start happening.
So I was thinking
to
maybe,
benefit residents.
maybe you would direct me to ask the Housing Authority representative to come.
That's a
and
great idea.
Speak with you guys and answer
great idea.
questions, just so we can kind of have a better understanding of it.
I think, would you agree?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner Giobi?
Yes. Several months ago, I had the opportunity to speak to the person who's in charge over in Fort Pierce. It was a different issue about the actual building that's here in Stewart. But she relayed to me that they have not evaluated, it's 15-plus years. They should be evaluating every 10 to 15 years the need for public housing. And that has not been done. So I think it would really be important to have people who live in Stewart to be on that housing authority. And that would maybe make a difference, and we certainly should be pushing them to do an evaluation, because they haven't based any new need of housing, because they haven't done their, their evaluation. So I just would like that to happen.
Commissioner Clark?
There's no federal monies going out for housing, although we did build Delaware Commons probably about 10 years ago or so. But going back to putting somebody on the Housing Authority Board, when I served on the board, usually somebody on the board asks somebody who's interested, and plus they get the member together and they would send to the city and ask us to just ratify that person. And that's what's been happening. And most of those people, they do have a criteria, like so many people who live in public housing there on site, and then people who live in the vicinity. And then there's a few others who are somebody maybe who knows about grants or budget and things like that who sit on the board. And we had somebody from downtown, on the Downtown Business Association for many years, who also served on the Housing Authority Board.
Well, I can tell you that when Pearlie Clark resigned or said she didn't want to be ratified for the second time or to be on the Stewart Board, I then went on the Stewart Housing site to see if there were bylaws or criteria that I would need. I made a couple phone calls, never got anybody on the phone to find out. And when I went on the website, it said that there was already another vacancy other than Pearlie Clark's position that I wasn't aware of, and that nobody from the Housing Authority has ever reached out to us to fulfill or ratify. I have no idea how long that second vacancy has been in place, that they've never asked us to ratify or replace it. So the idea that they're going to give us the names of people that might be interested and have us fill them, isn't happening.
Well, I know Ms. Mosey is the current president, and between that and the people in Fort Pierce, maybe we can get some answers.
So let's get Ms. Mosley to come.
And Ms. Bell seems like she
Speak to
wants
us,
to answer
correct?
something.
Okay?
Can Ms. Bell talk to us for a minute?
Certainly.
Ms. Clark?
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Yes, please approach the lectern.
Pearlie Bell Clark.
Good evening,
And that
Ms.
Clark is not related to Eula Clark.
Okay, the student housing is governed under the auspices of the St. Lucie County Housing. Because of the trouble we had with the management previously, then we're under their auspices. We are also, I don't know when you all have received the, what we do when someone,
Advisor board request?
no, when you are monitored by a
Audit?
audit, yeah. We get an audit, and that audit has just been done. So you all, it tells what we've done, what we're going to do, where our downside is, whatever. So if you need that, that will be easily gotten. And when you call there, there's someone there who does answer.
Locally.
Well, that would be
Yeah.
good if we could get a copy of that, Mr.
Yeah.
Martell.
Right, and I
And we
can
have all
tell
the
you
records.
that the housing that the city has, like Delaware Commons and other apartments that are under the Stewart Housing Authority, are 100% occupied. So the audit will show that there's 100% of the tenants paying whatever qualifying rent is, and that it's being received.
Right.
That nobody disputes that that's happening. It's just that if you ask them what other properties are available and could be identified in the Treasure Coast area as to be available to qualify for housing vouchers, they tell you to go to their website, but there's nothing on their website that says it, even though they tell you to do that. And when you point it out to their website, they say, I don't know, I'll have to call you back. And so there isn't a real organized presence for them trying to identify housing to qualify, and you would think that they could probably do that. I mean, and if they're not going to, that's great too. They could probably say, no, we don't want any more housing, or whatever it might be, but fund out, and I'm getting the finance director's also asking to comment.
The Stewart Housing Authority is listed as a component unit of the city of Stewart and included in our audit. So I do communicate with the staff over at the Fort Pierce Housing Authority, and they provide us some of those statistics, but that's actually included in the city's audit because we do appoint members to that board, or at least we're supposed to have members on the board, which that, under the financial accounting standards, that means that we include them as a component unit. So some of that audit information that Ms. Clark is referring to is already included in the city's financial statements.
Okay, thank you.
And that information's, we're not disputing the accuracy of it at all. We're fine with it. It's just, what is the criteria to serve on it? Should we have one or two people
Statutes.
serving, and what are we looking for?
Right.
Or statute.
And because of the vacancy, she was ill, so we didn't know whether she could come back or not. So that's why that second one was vacant.
I'm surprised they didn't tell us.
Well, I'm off, so that means I'm not.
You were not surprised, right?
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you.
Do you have any other comments, Mr. Martell?
Yes, unfortunately, I know I'm dragging on here tonight. I don't mean to be. The next is I have also received some comments on the 10th Street traffic calming, which includes Dolphin, Madison, Flamingo, 7th, Kruger Parkway, Palm Beach Road, and others. The city has taken some action and put some traffic calming signs up that seem to be having an effect. I've met with some residents about it. What the residents have requested the city do is have a workshop, not a formal city commission meeting, but schedule a workshop maybe a week or 2 weeks from now, notifying people in the neighborhoods that we would have kind of an open house from 5 to 7 one night, let people come in. They don't have to stay the whole time. They would just come in and be able to go up to the boards and be able to kind of like write down concerns or issues they have so that we could get the feedback from the neighborhood and compile that information to bring it back to the city commission. They also as it relates to that, we also put down the traffic measuring devices. The police department did that, and Chief Tuminelli has provided me with the data that was generated from that, and it does show that there's cars.
Going too fast.
Some of them are. And we will use that data as well. And there's been requests to lower the speed limit on 10th Street in front of the schools there from Palm Beach Road down to, I guess,
Kruger?
all the way down to the end, which would
Oh,
be,
gosh.
well, it doesn't even go through anyway, but all of 10th Street from 20, to Monterey, from 25 miles an hour to 20 miles per hour. I'm happy to do it. I just needed to get the consent from the commission. And then also, if you drive down 10th Street, there is a lot of signs. There's signs that tell you to watch out for signs. And there's some discussion about moving forward, maybe replacing some of the signs that say do not park or no parking with trees, because the people perceive a no parking sign to mean you're not allowed to park your car here and lock it and leave it. What they don't understand is that the neighbors that were asking for it over the years didn't want people parking on their front lawns while they were waiting to pick up their kids from school and all the other stuff. So those no parking signs aren't having that really strong effect of preventing the cars from parking on the lawns. But if we did put trees in there, there would be some spots where the cars couldn't as easily pull over, but on top of that, it would ultimately put a canopy over that entire sidewalk corridor. But that'll be an idea that comes through the program. I'm looking for you guys' authority to do the workshop and to do the speed limit.
Do you need an all in favor or a motion?
I don't think that the speed limit change is really the solution,
Okay?
but I would be in favor of the workshop, obviously.
Okay, so I will move forward on the workshop.
Yes. Workshop is,
And then we'll address what comes out of that after that. Can I ask
has
a
Ms.
question?
Moser had input on the workshop since she does that for a living and lives right
Oh,
there?
she will be invited, obviously, to attend.
Mr., when we have that, or before we have that, can we get any type of traffic counts or accident rates on that street, on 10th Street?
Sure, I'll send you all the data that we have now. I've already shared it with some others, but we have it. I don't have accident counts, but I have the daily traffic counts, the speed limit counts, the time of day when the cars come and all this stuff. What the surprise was to me was that I was under the impression that there was a huge influx of traffic from 7 to 8 a.m. maybe, and then again from 3 to 4 p.m. But the traffic counts show that there's a pretty good steady flow of traffic all day. I mean, it's not, I mean, there's obviously the drop-off and
Church is
pickup is an
there, too.
influence, but there's still pretty good traffic at that intersection all day. But my hope is that we get people from 7th Street and all the way up to Ocean Boulevard and all the descriptions, as Commissioner Collins pointed out a few minutes ago, and get some consensus from the neighbors. Obviously, whatever programs you guys start to look into to do are going to cost money, and so we're going to have to evaluate those under a capital improvement program, and the finance director and I are meeting tomorrow to start talking about that as well, so we'll be bringing that back. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion by the Vice Mayor and a second by Commissioner Clark. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Comments? Do we have comments from the public on any non-agenda related items? Madam Clerk.
I do. I have Kimberly McCarty.
Good evening, Ms. McCarty.
Kimberly McCarty, 5772 Southeast 47th Avenue, Stewart. My comments tonight relate to the unseemly behavior that has been displayed by a member of this commission. It's very disheartening to see in this small town where I was born and raised the level of pettiness and disrespect that is promoted by elected officials. As public officials, there's a code of conduct that should be upheld. However, I see consistent indications that it is not. In November of last year, there was dialogue about what to do with the current code, whether to amend it or completely do away with it. Not surprisingly, one commissioner agrees with the latter. In the words of this commissioner, none of us need to be telling any of the others of us how to behave or communicate differently. I beg to differ, and I'm assuming others agree because the city manager found the need to put this item on the agenda due to input from community members. The current code of conduct states that commissioners will fully participate in city commission meetings and other public forums while demonstrating civility, respect, kindness, consideration, and courtesy to others. They will also serve as a model of leadership and civility to the community. It further summarizes that it all comes down to respect. Respect for one another as individuals, and respect for the validity of different opinions, respect for the democratic process, and finally, respect for the community we serve. I find that these rules are broken on a consistent basis. I would admonish members of this commission to re-examine the rules by which you are governed. The level of pettiness and disrespect that is displayed is appalling and unbecoming of elected officials. An enforceable code of conduct is highly recommended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Robin Cartwright.
Good evening, Ms. Cartwright.
Evening, Commissioners. I'm sure you've missed me terribly. Filed this under apparently legal but ethically questionable and passing of the buck. Yes, a property owner was promised an incentive to not speak out. The agreement was not to buy an easement. M&M offered to, quote, be a good neighbor, to not object, and to allow FDOT to put in a light. I have all the emails, the texts, and the documentation if anybody would like them, including one from June 7th, 2021, where the homeowner said he did not approve of the plan. But regarding the light, there are multiple versions of the plans and emails where the placement of the light would be as it was negotiated behind the scenes. This light was something that we brought up repeatedly, and it was asked during the hearings and settlement negotiations to please put in a light to alleviate traffic. We were told it was not possible because of the location being so close to Indian Street. There's an approved FDOT application dated 9/29/2021, even though there was no homeowner approval as requested. Contrarily, there is an email from Paul Nicoletti confirming that the entrance had not been moved to where it is now, and there could be no light, and that email was dated 9/5/2023. So had it been approved, and if so, why wasn't it acknowledged during the settlement negotiations? And so what else should we question? How about Bridgeview receiving approval for a building height of 42 feet and then submitting 6 administrative changes, and now they're at 60 feet high? Was that by omission or design? What about what's happening with Karen Hall or the Hamilton's Church? Or what's happening with Giant Oil or Kristen Henschel's case? It is a big deal because we have to question if we can trust what we're being told, by whom, and about what. Why is there seemingly inconsistent or selective information being shared with a constant lack of oversight and a constant lack of responsibility? This is either gross negligence or intentional by design. Alas, the light has since been installed with the developer stating that everyone, including the homeowner, signed off on it. He has not. The city was asked to provide an as-built survey, and like everything else, the buck has been passed, this time to FDOT, to provide it. And the light wasn't properly installed. It hung over this guy's property by a good 4 feet overhead, and I'm curious to see how they fixed it. You can't just swing a light around. The concrete cutout is also wrong. But this is about more than the light. You are responsible for the approvals that bastardize the comp plan, and that goes for all of the other projects, especially those where you feel the need to constantly pass the buck.
Thank
Ella
you.
Morley, or Ella Maury.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ella Morey, and I, along with my fellow club members in the audience, am a member of Martin County's Florida 4-H. Today, I'm simply here with you to bring light to the incredible impact that Martin County 4-H has had, a program that's been shaping youth's lives right here in our community since before Martin County was even a county. Martin County 4-H is a part of the nationwide 4-H youth development program administered locally through the University of Florida's IFAS extension. It serves youths ages 5 to 18 through our county, offering hands-on learning experiences that build life skills, leadership, and confidence. Whether it's raising livestock, exploring science and technology, practicing archery, or learning about environmental stewardship, 4-H empowers young people to grow through doing. What makes Martin County 4-H special is its diversity of programs and its commitment to creating opportunities for all. From school enrichment programs such as embryology to community clubs focused on gardening, fishing, or even canine care, there's something for every interest. These programs are made possible by dedicated volunteers and caring adult mentors who guide youth through meaningful, real-world experiences. This past year alone, Martin County 4-H has brought educational activities to over 3,000 Martin County youths. But 4-H is more than just activities. It is a pathway to personal growth. It helps young people develop responsibility, teamwork, and resilience. It prepares them not only for college or careers, but for life. And it strengthens our community by fostering the next generation of engaged, capable citizens. In my own life, 4-H has been the foundation of my personal growth, providing me with opportunities I never imagined possible. Thanks to the support of programming offered by 4-H, I developed strong public speaking and leadership skills that have taken me from the local level all the way up to national recognition. This year, I was honored to place second at the 2025 Western National Roundup Public Speaking Competition, one that I was only able to attend because of 4-H. Through coaching, funding, and actually facilitating these competitions, I've been able to hone my public speaking skills, gain confidence in front of large groups. In addition to helping me grow as a speaker and a leader, 4-H has also empowered me as a young entrepreneur. Through the program, I've been provided with platforms to sell my honey at events and fundraisers, giving me invaluable real-world experience and exposure for my company, Ella's Backyard Honey. Beekeeping is something that I am passionate about, and it's a topic I often highlight in my public speaking competitions, bringing awareness to pollinator issues that affect the company, the world, and even our local communities. These achievements are not just my personal milestones. They're the result of a program that invests in youth and gives us a platform to grow, lead, and represent our community with pride. Thank you for your time.
Thank
What's
you.
the name of your business again? What was the name of your business again?
Ella's Backyard Honey.
Ella's?
Backyard Honey, yeah.
Good job.
I know she got the BDB youth thing on there.
Next, I have Vincent Encomio.
Mr. Hafner is here
I
too.
believe he stepped out. I'm not sure if he's... Vincent
Vince
Encomio.
Economino just left.
Okay, Robert Steinberg.
You did?
He left with Ms. Mosher.
Good evening, Mr. Steinberg.
Good evening, Mayor Rich, and commissioners, and all. And I'm here again tonight to ask for some clarity. It's interesting that Mr. Mortel has brought up what happens when a citizen thinks that the city is not obeying its ordinances or having its ordinances enforced. For a little background, you know, this is about Terra Firmata. Terra Firmata is a 2-cup, 40-seat outdoor bar. It, according to its business receipt, has a monthly average stock of only $2,000. They refer to themselves as the premier outdoor concert venue on the Treasure Coast. Chapter 2 of the LDC zoning districts uses allowed, number 2.0200, uses allowed in the zoning districts. Generally, letter A, consideration of uses not specifically listed. If a use is not listed within a specific zoning district, then it is not allowed. The table below it does not list a concert venue. Our special events ordinance is Section 3661, the definitions. Applicant means a person who applies for, obtains a permit for, and sponsors or co-sponsors a special event. An assembly means a gathering of 25 or more persons in one place for a common purpose. Person means a natural person or a business entity. Private property means the outdoor portion of any parcel or parcels of land that's owned by the person for commercial or multifamily use. Special event means an assembly which will take place on private or public property, including but not limited to art shows, block parties, craft show, ethnic or holiday celebrations, or festivals, or fireworks, or musical concerts. This is the only place in our code where the term musical concerts exist. Section 3662, permit required. It shall be unlawful for any person to sponsor, conduct, participate in a special event unless the special event is permitted, has first been issued, therefore, by the city manager or designee for the article. Going back to our charter, Article 3, Section 305, city manager's general purpose, the city manager shall see that all laws and ordinances are enforced. The last time I was here in Overland, Mr. Mayor Rich told me that I will receive an answer to the question, how is Terra Firmata exempt from this ordinance, or is Terra Firmata exempt from this ordinance? It's now going on 2 months since I've been asking Mr. Mortel about this, and I've been getting a tap dance. 2 weeks have gone by since I've heard from you, Mayor. I'd like to know if I'm going to get an answer, because I don't want to have to escalate this to a different level, as Mr. Mortel has outlined earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steinberg.
You're welcome to, or I can too if you want me to.
You want to speak to him now?
If that's the direction from the board, I will. It's up to you
Okay,
guys.
if you feel, Mr. Steinberg? Mr. Mortel would like to respond.
I have previously responded to Mr. Steinberg and told him that the city took the position that just the gathering of 24 people to conduct the business that is contemplated by the business tax doesn't create a special event. Otherwise, 24 people plus a waiter in front of the Osceola Cafe having breakfast would require a special event every single day of the week. The Regency Square...
That's not the point.
That's what the response was,
No,
Mr. Steinberg.
and your response-
I'll tell you what,
I don't
I'll
wanna-
respond again to in writing, rather than debate it.
We're not going to have an argument here.
Well, we just started an argument, didn't
Well,
we?
he was
I'll
just
email you.
trying to provide information as he understood it.
I'm asking a specific question
Okay.
about a specific place. I don't need to hear about restaurants that don't comply. I don't need to hear about the Lyric Theater. I don't need to hear about the Regency Theater. I've heard all of the excuses. Now I need to have it directly from the city, as if it were taking the city's position. Is Terra Firmata subject to the special events ordinance? If so, why is it not being enforced? And if not, why not?
Okay, he will respond in writing, and you will provide a copy of your response
I'm
to
going to
all the
ask the city
commissioners.
attorney to respond, but yes.
Okay, are there you or the attorney at your
I'd
job?
love to hear the legal
Thank you.
analysis.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
taken 8
Steinberg.
weeks to get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Any others?
I'm waiting.
I have no further
Oh,
comments.
no,
I'm sorry,
okay.
Mayor.
Can I get a motion for the approval of the consent calendar?
So moved.
We have a motion by the Vice Mayor,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Giobi. Thank you, 4-H'ers. I love 4-H. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Giobi?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Mayor Rich?
Yes.
Chief, do you mind speaking to this briefly? I know we just voted on it, but just giving everybody a quick understanding of what this is.
Are you worried?
Joe Ciminelli, Chief of Police, Stuart, Florida. What you just had passed is the Internet Crimes Against Children grant. Mr. Boglioli will be doing a presentation. We have asked for some equipment to do some internet child investigations. We are teamed up with the task force, which is spearheaded out of Broward County, and they target internet crimes against children. We are getting grant funds back from the state, which is adjusted within the budget coming up. We just started to be fully engaged. We have to receive specific training for this as well. So it is a little bit of a long process, but you definitely need to have the training to do it because it's very sensitive information. And I'm very glad that I have the support from the commission, Mr. Martell, and specifically my cops to do this type of investigations. And I think it's very important that we do it. And your support is appreciated. So thank you.
It has to be a hard job for the officers. It's
Yes.
creepy.
It's creepy. It's not one of the most fun jobs to have.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for being willing to do this, though.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do.
thank you.
Okay. Mr. Baggett, can you read item 3 for our consideration, please?
Mid-year budget adjustment, resolution number 45-2025. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, authorizing budget amendment number 11 to the fiscal year 2025 budget, appropriating and authorizing the expenditure of funds to account for additional revenues and appropriations identified at the mid-year, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Right. And we have our budget director with us this evening.
Yes. Evening, Commissioners and staff and citizens in attendance. I just want to start off that my daughter was in 4-H as well in the Treasure Coast community, and I've had the great pleasure of representing the city as a public speaker all around the United States and Canada, actually, and I feel absolutely belittled by that young lady who spoke. I am small potatoes compared to that, so that's got to be a great program if that's what's coming out. So, first of all, this evening, I hope we have a more upbeat topic with me tonight. So, how I'd like to approach this evening, as you see, the commissioners received the detailed item attachment, only because there are some cyber security issues in there, and then this discussion about the child crime issues are in there is why it's not, it's part of the agenda, but I'll bring it up if you have specific questions about it. But basically, it's a balanced amendment to the budget at the mid-year point. We've looked and examined where expenses and revenues are today, and there were some additional expenses that have come in. We identified if these were adjustments to items already in the budget or if they were new items, and then identified revenue sources to offset those. As the police chief noted, the additional expense in his capital outlay for the equipment needed for the child crimes is offset by grant revenue also. So as per Florida law, we're required to have a balanced budget. So even when I bring you these budget amendments, we always make sure they're balanced as well. So first I want to talk about where we were, and then where we are, and where we're going. So, and these, as the city manager referenced, tomorrow agenda items are due for the next meeting. So these financial agenda items are always really hard to pin down. So a lot of the numbers and stuff that I've put in here are already different since I created the document and shared it, and all the commissioners will receive this obviously as well. So first, where we were. And in this slide, I've discussed that I'm very confident in saying, the 2024 audit is very close to being done. It's done today. So now I'm absolutely certain of what the number is. The audit's dated today and will be made public very shortly. We are, by state law, required to be audited every year by an impartial outside auditing firm. And, after some of the financial accounting and auditing debacles of the past, it's almost an adversarial relationship by its very nature now. Like, they're out to make sure that they, because if they sign off on the audit and then something came out later, it would degrade their credibility and their standing in the community. So they're very diligent to make sure that before they sign off on the audit, that they've got a high level of confidence that they've examined the city's financials. So at this point, I can say that from our 2024 budget, which wound up being $55 million with all adjustments and rollover POs from the prior year, we actually collected $47 million in cash. So that's $47.9 million in the door and $47.7 million out the door. So we cleared, we lived within our means by $200,000. Now, the real inside thing is in the financials, what we call general fund includes things like the tree mitigation fund and the police special revenues and things like that. If we talk about just what is actually general fund, community services, police, fire, city commission, that margin is only $165,000. So, all along the way, the city manager is watching that. And those are real numbers. We put some numbers in the budget just for balancing purposes, like what we're going to fund our reserves with or what we're going to pull out of reserves. But the majority of the budget is actual real expenses and real revenues every day. And so with the city manager constantly meeting with the directors, he has regular meetings with them, and he talks with me, and we look over all the reports and the graphs and the budget and all that. The manager periodically says, let's wait and do that later. Can you keep doing that with part-time, maybe not full-time? Can we keep paying overtime and not fill that position? And through that, pumping the brakes or hitting the gas, we actually wound up skating, and as you can see, at 0.45% margin of error on the black. So in a $47 million operation, $165,000 in general fund alone, or $215 counting those extras, is shorter than a nose hair. So we're very tight on that. And so, as I said, that audit is now signed today and dated today, so that audit is made public and will be presented very shortly. Now, where we are today, and this is in tandem with the detail item attachment that you received in the agenda. So the halfway point, and these numbers again are already different today, but where we are, what we budgeted as revenues to collect and what we've actually collected, we've collected 49% of the revenues that we budgeted to collect. And what we've actually budgeted to spend and checks out the door is only 38% of that. Now here's the part where, the bean counters always do this stuff. We also have issued POs. So normally what we do is we'll do a PO for a contract. That PO is for the full amount of the contract or whatever this year's engagement is. And so that reduces from the department's available balance so they don't spend that money on other things. And I direct you to imagine, like in your personal checkbook, you've written a check that hasn't cleared yet, but you reduce your available balance. That's what these POs do for us. So if you looked at it straight, we've actually spent 57% if we include the POs. So cash to cash, I'm $6 million in the good, but cash with the POs, I'm $4.8 million in the red. So, it looks like you've spent more than you've collected. But revenues come in as they come in. These expenses are booked when we engage in the contract with the vendor and things like that. So just so if anyone looks, because it is all public, just so you know, that's how that works, is just like your personal checkbook, trying not to overdraw your balance. Some budgetary highlights besides what is on the schedule that you received. Overtime is currently 94% of what we budgeted. Even though the total expense is only 38%, I just said on the previous slide, overtime is well above the curve, but we're doing better than we did last year. So, there's always a silver lining. So we were worse at this point last year, so the fact that I'm better than we were last year is good. However, this is very indicative of doing more with less. As I just stated a few minutes ago, the manager sometimes directs the departments to not fill a vacancy, to run on overtime, because there is a sweet spot where paying overtime is cheaper than hiring a new person. So sometimes we'll intentionally run with a vacancy for that. But even with that, the departments are still on track in the 50% range. So they've just, a couple of them are above that 50, but overall the average is everyone's around where they should be at the halfway point. Building permits are only 19% of budget at the 6 months. So, for whatever socioeconomic reasons or political economic reasons that is, we've only collected 19% of what I expected to budget. Now, the way we budget that is by Florida state law, we're only supposed to charge what it costs to issue the permit. So our budget is equal to the building and permitting department's budget. So we've only collected 19% of what that is. So let's roll this forward. Let's say for the entire year, we only collected 19%. When I get to 9/30, then we would fund the building department with the permit reserve that has been created by Florida statute. So, it's not like I'm going to dip into general fund savings account for this, into fund balance. There is actually a permit reserve to offset the expense of the permit department. Ambulance fees are projecting above my original budget. I had extensive conversations with the chief and the assistant chief over at the fire department about what this is. They've improved their process. They've gotten better at collecting the information for what the billing is based on. And we're actually hoping that when Station 3 is really up and going, that we chew more into those mutual aid calls to the county, and we collect more of that money ourselves and not that. But at least right now, their in-house staff rearrangements and allocation of duties has paid off, that ambulance fees are projecting up. You'll see in the detail item I provided with the agenda, there's a few where I said trending higher than what I budgeted to collect, so that's where some of these extra funds came from. Protective inspections are through the roof, so I can only say our new software that we installed that I talk about periodically has been working, and so now we're actually collecting, I think, what were some lost revenues previously and uncaptured things. Simple tweaks like before, we were often doing an inspection and never getting paid. Now, we make sure we get paid before we perform the inspection. So little things like that have been made possible. So that's doing it. And then other plan review and inspection. So even though permits are down, the fees that we collect for reviewing the plans and the permits that are submitted are up. So that's come in higher than what was estimated. So that certainly goes into it. And then, of course, our favorite one is interest earnings. That's a constant monitor. The interest earnings are rolling at 48% of what I budgeted. We, like everyone else, have to watch what happens with tariffs or negotiations, the price of oil and gas and those kind of things. All of those economic factors roll into that. But the city, obviously, we have a structured program. I have investments that are 5 years out, and I have investments that are 90 days out. So, we've locked in some rates when they were better. It's when those investments mature, where do we put the money now? And what do we do as they mature and roll over? But actually, right now, I'm relieved that this continues to flow at least in that 50 percentile range that we need to stay on track for the budget. Little behind the curtain talk, when the commission asked for an environmental attorney, I rolled the dice and increased my projection on interest earnings to pay for that position. So that money that was added to the 25 budget at the last minute came from me stretching a little bit out of my comfort zone and saying we would collect more in interest earnings than I had originally projected. And right now we're at 48%. I'd like it to be 50, but we're at 48, so we're doing well. Keeping on track. So the manager, this is just a little screenshot of some of the graphs and charts you'll see there, and you can see just in the little glimpse there I give you of where some of these indicators let us know that we're ahead. Like ad valorem being almost 100% of that speedometer there. That's only because ad valorem is very seasonal. We collect all the ad valorem basically at the beginning of the year. It's not like we're way ahead of budget. So that's part of what this is knowing which revenues are seasonal and which revenues are constant. You get, the same amount every month versus like, oh, something's happening here. So the directors have been examining their budgets also for negative positive trends. We sent out a thing, the manager's watching your purchasing cards even, and we've had departments turn them back in. Like, we don't need them, we had more than we needed, please take them back. And so I think everyone's been pitching in to keep this current year budget running on that 50 percentile range here at the half year as well. Where we're going. So following this mid-year adjustment tonight, I'm opening the 2026 budget tomorrow for the departments. So the year-to-date budget column would be there, the year-to-date expense would be there, and they would begin entering that line item budget detail and all of their requests based on that, our current staffing levels and those sorts of things. And so that would be there. We continue to sharpen the pencil and make more targeted analysis on it, as the technology and the tools have increased and the experience of the staff. Everybody's gotten really good now at noticing what might be a little off kilter. So we're hoping that the budget's even sharper than previously. And of course, we're watching it. And right now, the city manager mentioned that we're looking at the capital improvement program tomorrow to sharpen the current one before we begin the 26. I know that we've discussed some traffic calming maybe added to that CIP. And of course, it's always our job to try and find funding, if any, possible to pay for those kind of CIP projects. And so the city is actually going to be rolling out a very more comprehensive capital program with individual pages for each program so that people can drill down into that detail. So let's talk property tax. Now, Ben Hogarth and I do a lot of talking about the legislature and these bills, and, and I try to read as much as I can as well. And so, currently, there's been, I don't know if it's political posturing, I don't know what it is, but there's been talk about eliminating property tax and replacing it with a use tax in Florida. We've just, you can't get there from here, as they say. I mean, I just don't know, and I've got some slides that's going to show you some of that in just a moment.
It was disproportionately.
Yeah, well, my favorite example is two ends of the spectrum. And let's call one, big time and one, local. The big time doesn't even live here, but has a huge estate and pays millions of dollars in property tax, and they're upset about doing that. You have someone else who's completely exempted by homestead and everything else who pays no property tax. And so that goes on. Now, if you eliminate property tax and they say, hey, we're going to replace it with a use tax instead, and let's say to make the numbers work, they have to up the state of Florida's sales tax to 25% or something, right, to replace property tax. And it would be different for each location. Well, the person that now no longer pays millions of dollars in property tax is fine paying $9 for a gallon of milk. But the person who paid nothing in property tax now has to pay $9 for a gallon of milk. So, in the bean counter world, they would have to change all the rules, how they allocate it. Things that are currently not taxed would have to be taxed. You just can't make up the missing revenue from property tax with a use tax that way, and it not be dreadfully harmful to the use, much less tourism. You go to Walt Disney World and, a hat's $50, and now with the sales tax, it's $75. So it would just be insane what would happen. So I don't know where that's going. Given that I can't worry myself with that stuff, I just chug forward with what we know. I've built several models to analyze the tax roll every year. So a little thing, the 25 budget is built on the 24 tax roll. So wherever your taxes were, they certify the tax roll. The 25 fiscal year budget is built on the 24 tax roll. The 26 budget will be built on the 25 tax roll. So the 25 tax roll has not been certified yet. They're still out valuing properties and stuff like that. And whoever's CO'd and built and ready by December 31st, they'll say, okay, that's the tax roll that you do your new budget on. Okay? So that is basically the only revenue that we control. If you go down the list, they're controlled either by population, by the state, there's a formula. Ad valorem really is the only tax that you, as commissioners, and we as citizens can control upon ourselves, is what millage we decide to charge ourselves. And in the city of Stuart, ad valorem accounts for 35%, actually 34.73% of our general fund revenues, or about $16 million. There's some put and take, right? We write a check to the CRA, but we do this stuff. So basically, 35% of the budget comes from property tax. Police and fire are 78% of our budget expense. So 16 million in revenue offsetting 26 million in expense. The taxpayers of Stuart currently, whatever the makeup is, don't pay for police and fire. So that, we haven't even talked about the city commission. We haven't talked about community services. We haven't talked about streets and paving roads and whatever like that. So the sum total of all property taxes paid by everybody, Walmart, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, not-for-profit so-and-so, whatever, everything generates 16 million, 35% of our budget. That doesn't pay for just the police and fire. So we make the ends meet by all these other revenues that are also being challenged by the legislature. So between business tax, sales tax, parking tickets, code enforcement fines, whatever, that's how I bring all the ends together and tie up the knot at the end and say, here's the bow, here's the budget, it's balanced. Property tax only gives me 35% of that expense that we talk about. Okay? Now, I did some analysis, and this is the kind of analysis that I get every year. So as soon as the 25 tax roll is ready, I dump it in here. And basically what I've looked at is said, okay, and this has changed, obviously. This is a lot different than it was when I came in 1995. So this is the taxable value, and then what portion of that value by each one of these municipalities in the county is residential and non-residential, as identified by the Martin County Property Appraiser. And non-residential can be a government property. It could be this city hall right here. It could be a retention pond, or it could be a not-for-profit organization. It could be a Walmart. It could be whatever. Residential is everything from a vacant residential lot to a, less than 10-unit multifamily unit, residential condo. And so rather than trying to see it there, I put it in graphs for you, but basically, Jupiter Island is 99% residential, 1% non-residential, which I suspect is actually their city hall, because there's not much else on Jupiter Island besides that. Sewell's Point is 98% residential, and 2. Martin County, the unincorporated area, is 85-15, so 85% of their taxable value comes from what is deemed residential by the property appraiser. 15. Ocean Breeze is 60-40. Stewart is 56-44. So if you want to round up one way or another, we're either 50-50 or 60-40 like Ocean Breeze, but we're very close in what total taxable value is, okay? But we're going to dig in a little deeper. And then Indiantown right now currently is the oddball out there, 34% residential and 66. I think we're pretty certain that's FP&L out there in Indiantown. So that's where it is, right? But I know that they've got building permits and housing stuff all coming through their pike, so.
Yeah, they'll catch up.
They'll catch up. And as I said, we currently have this very odd situation where a lot of Florida revenues are based on your population. So my classic example, and I sound like a parrot and a broken record, but there is a very real possible future where a TV sold at Best Buy in the Stuart city limits, Indiantown would collect more sales tax on that TV than the city of Stuart does. And that's just how the formula works right now. And then here you can see visually, Stuart is very close to a 50-50 split between the value. Okay, I want to stress that, the value. Because here, and this is a little hard to see, but I've got some graphs after this for you. I break down what that use is of those residential versus non-residential. And ultimately what you see, for example, here, I'll read for those who can't see in the audience. Single-family homes, what the property appraiser identifies as a single-family home, there's 2,595 parcels currently tagged as a single-family residential. Now, they have single-family transitional as 10, and single-family attached. I'm gathering that's the, accessory building, the mother-in-law suite as it's been referred to in the past. There's 16 of those on the tax roll, okay? And then you can see there are 4,342 residential condos, right? Now, the other one, they provide some other numbers that really don't. Some have a very important role in our budget and some don't. So as you can see there, of those single-family homes, that's $1 billion worth of value on the single-family homes, but because of the homestead exemptions and other things, their taxable value is only $600,000. So, there's a real value loss on that, right? So you're not collecting a lot of property tax on those, which comes up in my upcoming slide. And you see there on the residential condos, they're $900 million, they drop down to $560 million in value. So all these lose their value. You see what the average bill. So those multifamily larger than 10 units, they don't get any more specific than that. Right? The property appraiser doesn't go any deeper detail than that. They just say a multifamily unit with 10 units or more, that there are 24 of those, and that they're valued at $400 million. Their taxable value is $300 million, and they their average tax bill is $81,000. Whereas the average single-family home is 13, and that sounds ridiculous, but you'll see exactly in a moment where that comes from. So, where I said that our taxable value is 56% residential and 44 commercial, But 83% of the properties are residential and 17% of the properties are non-residential. So 17% of our properties generate 50% of our revenue, and 83% of our properties generate 50% of our revenue. Okay, that's the breakdown. Oh, and then, of course, I spelled it out right here. So that, I think that's just a restatement of what is it, right? Yep, 17%. So then, these are some of the fun graphs that we did. So you can see here, this is the distribution of all properties. So this is all parcels, and you can see here, under that 200,000 or less, there's 2,700 parcels that are valued at 200,000 or less, and then down here, down to, there's 1,900 parcels that are valued from $0 to $50,000, right? And then over here, there's 36 properties that are valued over $10 million.
The third column from the left is less than
This-
250?
Yeah, so this one is, so, valued from 500,000 to 1 million, there's 471 properties. From 1 million to 5 million is 300 properties. And then from 5 million to 10 million, there's 40 properties. And there's only 36 properties over that 10 million mark, okay?
That makes sense.
Now, this is it by residential alone. So this is all properties. This is, this is residential by itself. So you can see here, there's 3 residential properties from that 5 million to 10, and only 10 residential properties up to 10 million and over. Okay?
This is in the city.
In the city, all in the city, yeah, all in the city.
Our budget's limited to the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to, do some work for Jupiter Island, just charge a little admin fee.
Jupiter Island has 525 residences, and their total valuation is more than the total valuation of the city of Stewart.
Yeah, yes. So, but you can see here, basically, we start at 2,400 and go this way, the number of properties under that $200,000 valuation, taxable valuation. This is not market value, this is not what your realtor could sell your house for. This is what you're currently paying taxes to the city of Stewart on, okay? This is the distribution of non-residential properties. And this 402 parcels that are down here at 0, those really are like the retention ponds or mosquito farms, as I call them. So,
Before he goes on, I just want
Yes,
to
sir.
be clear, he was talking a minute ago when he said that taxable value is what we're talking about, not what it would sell for on the real estate market.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that might have a house that's currently would sell for more than $1 million, but if they've owned that property for more than 5 years and they've homesteaded it, it's much likely to be significantly lower on the tax assessment.
I'd be one of them.
yes, sir, you, go ahead, do you have
That's
anything?
all I have. I
Okay.
just want to make sure the taxable was where those numbers were applying to, not the actual value, but
Right.
the taxable.
Yeah.
And the apartment buildings and commercial properties don't have the disparity in value. They have no homestead or no exemption, so they go straight free.
And, a 10% increase cap versus the 3,
Right.
plus the additional homesteads. And so the city manager had a suspicion, and I spoke with the property appraiser. And so you do have these situations where there's like a home that's been homesteaded, and it has an immense unassessed value. But but because of the 3% cap on the increase, as whatever happens to our millage, that house is 3% gain, still trying to get back to its unappraised value, right? Like, it's got a taxable value, it's got an appraisal value with the property appraiser, but not a taxable value. And they can only go up by 3%. So even the changes in our millage, that property would still have a tax bill that you're taxing. You could reach to a point where they pay less than they did last year, but there's such a disparity between their taxable value and the unassessed value because of homestead and the capping, that property basically would never not pay a bill, right? They're just never not going to pay a bill. And that's the fallacy every year of the millage. Even if we did rollback rate, someone's going to have a property tax. If you improved your home and put an outdoor kitchen and a swimming pool in, the rollback rate assumes that everybody's rate value is the same. But if you increase the value of your home, even a rollback rate, you're going to get a tax increase. I know, because I get these telephone calls from citizens directly. You said you're doing rollback and my taxes went up, right? You know, these are the same people I've spoken to over the years where I paid $4,000 in taxes, and I say, you know, can we look at your bill together? Down on line 8, it says City of Stuart General. What does it say there? It's like $47. I'm like, that's what you gave me. Like, you paid Children's Services Council, you paid South Florida Water Management District, you paid Martin County School Board, you paid Martin County, you paid Florida Inland Navigational District, you did all this stuff. You gave me $47. So, you know, it's a lot of taxpayer education out there is what's needed. And I know the property appraiser offers those kind of classes and things, but just, they're not well attended. So then, here's the ad valorem by taxable value. So now this is what we're collecting in revenue. And as you could see, you know, the inverse is true. Those properties down here that are valued at nothing, you know, they're contributing $194,000 to the city. Those 36 properties pay 85% of the revenue. So 36 properties are keeping the city of Stuart operating. Okay. And you know, whatever that is. So then, for a little better, this is the overlay. So this is that same, there's those same properties, right? The blue is the number of properties, and the green is how much they paid, right? And here's all these properties and how much they paid. So that's the backwards. It's a little bit, you know. Actually, Terry O'Neill and I discovered this quite by accident one day. He was trying to do some analysis for his commission at that time, and he asked me to run some numbers, and we both agreed, like, we actually live in like a mining community. Everyone thinks this is like an affluent retirement waterside community. I'm like, the water's not us. That's you know, Rio in the county. It's Jensen Beach. So when we looked at it, we're like, wow, the distribution of revenue and everything is not anything what we expected. So then I've been doing this analysis ever since. And then here's just, that was all properties, and now this is the residential property. So you can see, again, those 3 residential properties down here, paying 1.7, pay as much in ad valorem as the 2,400 properties down here do. So 3 residential properties pay as much as the 2,400 residential properties right here, and then those down. And then this is where the commercial. So again, obviously, those 0 property, those 402 zero valued properties, and like I said, those could be, you know, government buildings, those could be retention ponds, whatever. So they're contributing nothing. And then down here, again, those properties that were at the end of that scale are contributing that much in ad valorem. So then at this point, I would entertain any questions you have about the mid-year budget adjustment, or anything I told you about property tax, or
I could just briefly make a couple of comments on Jolie's presentation before the questions too. First, he commented on building permits in the development department being at 19% of the budget. Historically, the development department's budget is based upon the data that we've operationally used for the years gone by and projections and things like that. In this year, we essentially had the development department was not able to take any applications for 6 months, so that did have an impact on it, but it's obviously open now, so that could recover, and we could see a difference in the second half. And then also, the city hasn't approved any projects of any meaningful size since 2022, and as a result, you don't have significant new applications coming in that pay a lot of fees, so it'll result in a next year's budget, and I hate using percentages because they don't mean a lot, but next year we will obviously downgrade the amount of money that the development department's going to be bringing in permit fees and other stuff, so the percentage change will be different. And then as it related to the property tax, the state of Florida getting rid of ad valorem property tax, the analysis being that a family of 4 in Martin County's the average median income is $84,000 for a family of 4. Well, that family of 4 spends 100% of $84,000 on groceries, rent, food, clothing, and everything for their children. And so if a rich person that makes $1 million a year had to pay 10% or $10 for a gallon of milk, well, they'd still have $900,000 a year left over after they paid their $84,000 in expenses to maintain their life. But a person that lives paycheck to paycheck, if you saw a 30% increase in your cost of living because of not having property taxes paying it, they simply wouldn't make ends meet. And then the only other comment I had was the property values and the taxable values, but we've already covered that.
Any questions?
Just with regard to the environmental attorney, I know we sprung that up on you late, so I can appreciate the interest covering that short term, but we also haven't hired anybody, so kind of a wash.
Oh, that, if you look at the number that we are in the black,
Yeah.
that is what the cost of the environmental attorney would have been if we had hired them. Would
So
have been in the red.
either way, we're kind of cleared, but my point was going to be, I would like to see that in the future is not it's not paid for with interest, but hopefully it's a.
Well, it'll be formally
Yeah,
budgeted
we-
next year.
It'll be formally budgeted with whatever, I've heard stormwater fees, I've heard lots of things proposed. Right? And my famous quote was Paula Deen was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and she was cooking, and Oprah Winfrey says, "That's an awful lot of butter in that." And Paula Deen says, "I'm just your cook, I'm not your doctor." So, you tell me what you want me to do. Right. And I'll make magic happen. It's just, right now, when you gave that to me at the last minute, like, that was my one
Absolutely.
place to go. And of course, now my laundry's out in the wind. If something happens and suddenly, interest earnings fall through the floor, well, then we'll be scrambling for something. But right now, it's holding up.
And as a smaller government kind of guy, I'm saying this to you, but I'm meaning it this way, and I've already said as much to Mike. My hope is that it's a reprioritization of staff more than enlarging the government with this new department. So that's all for my comments on that. Thank you for putting this together.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions of?
My only comment would be, when will the check registers update? I know it's been a while with the new site and.
Yeah, so I'm currently, I tried to automate that so it would be there. And so just for the public record and everything, in that, the way that the current iteration of the software is changing every day. When I tried to make it live, I can filter it down to what you want to see, but some of that includes like checks for like police officers and their home addresses on that, right, and stuff like that. And so I have to do it manually right now. So that's what happens is I periodically run my report and I upload it into that site. So yes, it's not, if it was automated, I would just set it and forget it. But I do have to do it myself, and I will, Commissioner, get that up to date through,
It's a lot then if you got a manual.
Yeah, it is a lot, doing it manually, but I know that we had some requests from the public for it. The city clerk had received a public records request for it. And so we have always provided something through a PDF or whatever. I think right now it's better, you can download it and filter it and sort it. Yeah. So, to that point, our check register, some of the things you hear at the federal level with DOJ, what they're doing is they're looking through the check register and seeing what the descriptions are and saying, you spent how much on this? Our check register is public, as I believe Commissioner Reed's currently referring to. We put our check register out on the website with what we spent and the description of what we were buying. But I do have to control some of the data, and unfortunately, the current software is too open. It's called OpenGov. And so a user like yourself could go in there and like, oh, what does this button do? And you could unhide sensitive information. So that's why I'm doing it manually right now. I'm hoping, and I've been leaning on the company to make it where I can just, as soon as we cut the check, it feeds right into the report. That's my ultimate goal.
All right. My water bill's fixed too, thanks to you.
Yes, sir, thank you. I fixed your water bill.
Yep. That's all I have.
It was an error. He didn't get it free. It was an error. Yeah, I fixed your water bill.
So I can pay it now.
Yeah, it was an error.
And I think the chief was mentioning something I see in the agenda packet. Was he talking about the 60,000 in revenue?
Yes, sir.
Is that, okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
the grant.
that's the federal grant to offset the child crime equipment. So they're asking to buy the equipment. From what I understand, the a server has arrived that weighs over 300-something pounds, so I'm very curious about going to pick it up. But, so that server and a lot of the equipment related to the child crime stuff, that's what, they asked for that in additional expense. You'll see that below in the expense list. And then up there in the revenue part is the federal grant to offset that. So there was $400,000 worth of revenue and $400,000 worth of expenses.
And I want to just make sure I understand this. So if I'm looking at, in the agenda packet, it's, let me pull it back up. On the mid-year schedule,
Yes, sir.
on that page, Jolie, when we're looking at, like, for example, it says for Microsoft renewal licenses, is that 50,000 that wasn't accounted for, or it's just on here and we're focused on what's in red, just moving the funds from?
So I'll get, I see him poke his, you don't have, I got you covered, I got you. So, here's what happens, and this is.
Yeah,
it's a
just so
thing.
I know, because I,
All the software now is basically a rent it by the month, right? You don't buy the license anymore. So if you don't pay, they just turn it off.
yes.
And essentially, they have different levels to the license. And we started out with like, oh, we're going to get a level 1 license for everybody so they have an email address. Well, then when they found out, like, well, actually, the police to do their
Word and everything
reports,
else,
you have to have Word, you have to have Excel. So then like, oh, you got to buy a level 3 license. And
Yeah.
so now, basically, every employee has to have a license to get their email about their paychecks ready, sign off on their timesheet, whatever. Or, hey, you know, it's Employee Appreciation Week, as you all participated in. So that expense goes up, and the IT department is at the mercy of the quote from Microsoft that, okay, to provide these licenses, we now have this many more licenses we need because of, there's a license assigned to a computer just so we can send out the notifications. So that's an adjustment. Now, we're sharpening the pencil already, and we're thinking, okay, so when I do the 26 budget, I might be able to come in a little under that, but that's just the initial quote we got from the Florida reseller of the licenses.
So like going back to it, when it says adjusted something already budgeted, so it was budgeted 50,000?
No, sir.
Oh, okay, so,
We have Microsoft Office licenses in the budget already. These are additional licenses.
okay.
So it's not a new item that wasn't there. We're adjusting something that was in the
So
budget.
all of these amounts, the line item was budgeted, just not the dollar amount, so this
It's
is,
a plus or minus to that already budgeted amount.
Okay.
So there's an amount budgeted for Office licenses. We need to increase that number.
all right,
Yes, sir.
makes sense. That's it.
Do you have an estimate of the revenue we will receive from the Lands for You program, or is that what it's called, Mayor's
So
program?
the half-cent sales tax,
Yeah,
Well, we did actually receive our, am I?
okay.
Right? Well, the thing is, like, I tell you numbers and then you start shopping. So, I'm always like, the answer is no, we don't have any money.
and for the record, we are going to be bringing an agenda item on the May 28th agenda that will be discussing this exact item.
It's
Because there are some restrictions to the manner in which we can spend that money, correct?
Yes, sir,
The
different than the
has
county.
restrictions.
Yeah, the county has to buy conservation lands, and they have all the land to buy, but Stewart doesn't have a lot of conservation land laying around to buy. But they did not pass the same restrictions onto the local, because again, that population distribution thing. So we're going to get some of that money, no matter what. Jupiter Islands are going to get some of that money. Indiatown's going to get some of that money. So everyone's going to get a piece of that money just based on their population.
Okay.
And we have received our first payments of that at $89,000. I actually pulled it up for you, because I thought you might ask that. And so our first,
And that is, and
and
that is,
189,000 is what we received. So
that's a
at,
monthly disbursement?
so at that rate, because
I can do that math.
well, we're not getting it for this full year, so I'm only getting like $1.1 million this year.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Okay.
This fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that's good.
Well,
You talk about the overtime, what are the top 3 departments that
Police, fire,
need overtime?
police, fire, and public works. I mean, so
Okay.
anytime a firefighter leaves, the new firefighter to replace that firefighter has to be trained for weeks before they can be let loose on a shift. So during that training time, that firefighter's, with the preceptor and doing all that kind of, you're impressed I keep track of all that, don't you, Chief? Yep, see? I'm giving the thumbs up, that's right. So that firefighter is basically not useful for, how many weeks? 12 weeks of basically, they're 12 weeks of basic training like a 40-hour employee, so they're not going on those 24-hour shifts. That whole 12 weeks, that vacancy has to be covered by another firefighter.
That's overtime? Also has a minimum staffing, and when you have somebody out on work comp or somebody out on maternity leave, you have to, like, when Mary was out last week, we didn't have to bring another clerk in. Suze could run the show, but in the fire department, you can't have the seat sit empty. You have to bring someone else in, and everybody else is already scheduled to work full-time, so when you bring them in, it's automatic overtime.
And it's such nuances. I've been doing fire department payrolls for 35 years. So that's just how it works. There's minimum staffing requirements. You can't send the ambulance out with one person on it. Right. So, if you don't have that second or third person that day, you got to bring people in on overtime or you can't, or the ambulance is down, it just can't go out. So you have to pay the overtime to get the person on the shift. In police, obviously, when something happens and the officer's out, after following an event or something, that still has to be covered. So,
And I will say that in working with both chiefs, we have been able to reduce the overtime in both departments, and you can see a trend. I mean, it's literally like a ski slope going down. Public Works has also been reducing their overtime, but the only overtime we really had in Public Works this year is like a line blows. You don't really have much choice, but you got to get guys out there and you got to just deal with it and stuff like that. So we've run into that problem as well. And it's not as easy to tell the lines not to break, but hopefully they won't break as much.
I would say we have the most, like of all the things that we pay, I have the most graphs, charts, and models about overtime than anything else in the city. Like that is the most studied expense.
It can blow the budget up, so.
It can.
And it's also easy to see.
It's very easy to see. It has its own account number in every budget. You can't miss it. So, that's definitely one that we watch.
No, thank you very much. That was comprehensive, and it's important that we do receive an update.
Yeah, and the PowerPoint presentation will be given to the clerk and added to the public record. You'll have
I would
access to
appreciate it if I could receive a copy of that.
Yes, sir.
And probably all the commissioners.
Yep, no, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We need to vote on it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner
I
Clark.
had my light on.
I'm sorry.
But if there's no other discussion from the commission with regard to resolution number 45-2025 on the adjustment of the mid-year budget, I move approval of the staff recommendation. I can't remember if I heard Mr. Baggett read the resolution.
He did?
Or maybe he did.
He did?
I will confess I was asleep. I'm just kidding.
We have a motion by Commissioner Clark.
I would second with the understanding that we're going to continue to see that glide path on overtime heading down. Would be my comment.
Your comment is in the record. Are you seconding it?
I did.
And a second by the Vice Mayor. Any public comment on the mid-year budget adjustment? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Giobbi?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Collins?
Yes.
Mayor Rich?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
And now we are jumping all the way down. It's withdrawn, but it's probably going to be coming back, but not tonight. Item 6, will you read item 6 for our consideration, please, Mr. Baggett?
Of course.
Pete Marr's here and he wants...
No, they're just here to make sure we don't call it.
Terry!
That's-
It's withdrawn,
We
Commissioner
don't have
Clark.
jurisdiction to hear it. Go ahead and
Mr.
read
Baggett?
Item 6.
Agenda item number 6, code amendment adding language related to trespassing. It's ordinance number 2542-2025, an ordinance of the City of Stuart, Florida, amending Part 2, Chapter 30, Parks and Recreational Areas, Sections 30-3 through 30-5 of the City of Stuart Code of Ordinances by adding certain provisions related to trespass warnings in the appeal process for trespass warnings under certain circumstances for public property and other property generally open to the public, providing for the repeal of prior ordinances and resolutions, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for an effective date and for other purposes. And this agenda item is mine. If you recall, within the last 6 months to the fall, that there was a new amendment to the statute, section 125-0231, and effective, I believe, January 1st of earlier this year, we were required to not permit or otherwise allow or authorize any person to regularly engage in public camping or sleeping on any public property, including but not limited to any public building or its grounds and any public right-of-way under the jurisdiction of the city. We had a trespass ordinance already in place that dealt with overnight camping out of parks and right-of-ways and public property. But what I did learn is through reviewing case law that we needed to have a trespass warning process, and our code of ordinance went directly to trespassing them, and which is a criminal violation. And so the case law that I reviewed, multiple cases where it addressed this, and I actually had conversations with the county, one of the assistant county attorneys who also had to add to their policy a trespass warning mechanism, and it's the cases said procedurally due process, that we are required to have like an appeal process so they can appeal any trespass warning that they have. Yep. So if you look at the red line sections of the ordinance, primarily what you'll see is a trespass warning added, and then also the mechanism to which anybody who is served with a written trespass warning will have a certain amount of days to appeal it.
Yep.
It will go to me, and then I will set it on the next magistrate hearing, and they can plead their appeal to the magistrate. And I had gone through this process with our chief and both captains at our police department, and we came up with the language that is the red underlined versions in the proposed changes to the ordinance. And that pretty much sums it up. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any of them.
Does any members of the commission have any questions for Mr. Beckett?
Sure, for clarification purposes, it's just us complying with a Florida state statute.
So we, in my opinion, we were already in compliance because we had an ordinance in place that prevented or disallowed people from camping on our public property. However, case law that had interpreted such ordinances in other cities or counties, case law said that you had to have a trespass warning process. You can't just trespass them and throw them in jail. You got to have a warning, give them a warning, and then if they violate it after the warning, then they can be arrested or fined, depending on what level it is. And what happened was the courts, I found a few cases, and like I said, I had a discussion with another, one of the assistant county attorneys, and we both agreed that we needed some sort of appeal process for due process rights. So you have a right to challenge the trespass warning.
Yep.
And so that's what we put into place. So it wasn't necessarily the statute itself, it was case laws interpreting similar statutes that I had noticed we didn't have in our code, so I'm adding it. So I'd probably say it would be more clear, the reason why I did this is the statute made me look at the ordinance and then look at case law that prompted that I add this language to our ordinance.
Thanks, Lee.
Yep.
Any questions, Commissioner Clark?
No, I'm working on a case like that, but it's something else.
Commissioner,
It's important.
And just so it's clear, this was the first reading of the ordinance, so we'll come back for a second reading.
So do you need a motion with regard to 2542, 2025?
I would be looking for a motion to transmit it to the second reading.
Second reading, okay. So we don't have to vote tonight?
no.
Well, you could do a motion to transmit it and you still vote it,
Okay,
but
motion to transmit 2542, 2025 to the second reading. If there's no changes, I guess we'll move forward
We
with
have a
it.
motion by Commissioner Clark.
I'll second the motion.
I'm going to give the second to Commissioner Giobi. Any
I'm sorry.
comments from the public regarding this item? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Rich,
Yes?
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Collins.
Yes.
Commissioner Giobi.
Yes.
Motion passes. Seeing no other items for our consideration, the meeting is adjourned.